So I have a point of view that I want to share with you guys today, and I want to make it clear up front. And I think it's a point of view that's been shared by most of the people that were speaking today. So certainly Greg Baldwin and Meg Garlinghouse were talking about it. It's what Darren was just talking about, which is we can build organizations and have organizations that are based on this idea of abundance. Social media, to me, is often just a tool to get at the resources that already exist and that we can tap into and use. And I think that's not what our model is today, right? We walk around with this scarcity mentality, often because we think resources equals money, right? And we need money too, my organization, right? So I know that often the first answer to what do you need is money. That's true for everybody, so it's often kind of the least interesting answer that you can give. And when you start looking at some of the other things that you have an opportunity to get and to ask for, you can find more available to you. We exist, I think, as organizations in this unique place. We're meeting needs that aren't being met, right, in traditional ways. We're in this space that businesses and governments don't reach. This map is from the Food Desert Locator, right? It's this tool put out by the USDA, and I plugged in the zip code for this address. And those are the census tracts that don't have fresh food in them, just right around the Bay Area. Right? Those are people where businesses aren't reaching them often, and government services may not be reaching those folks with some of the things that they need. And that's, I think, why we're not for profit, or we're non-governmental organizations, right? I think it's less about the scarcity part, like defining ourselves by what we don't do, and the fact that we're in that place that the businesses aren't meeting and the governments aren't meeting. And that's where we're stepping up, and that's the hard problem that we're trying to solve. So rather, though, than taking on the scarcity part of that mentality, the part that says, well, the only thing I really need is money, right, and time, and then we'll get these problems solved, I want you to leave thinking that there's more available to you and that there are an abundance of resources. And I'll tell you why I believe in that. Because I work for this organization, TechSoup. We started 24 years ago. And our founder was a journalist. And he found his buddies were getting review copies of software, and these journalists were throwing the software away. So he went and he told his friends, like, give me the extra copies of software. And then our organizational, as I've just found out, mythology, has it that somebody got in a van and drove around to nonprofits and took the software to them. Turns out we actually used the US Postal Service. That was the van that went around to nonprofits, but a van nonetheless. So we gave all of those copies of software away, and now, 24 years later, we have direct impact in over 70 countries. We've given $2.5 billion worth of software away. Right? So we went from the journalists to the companies themselves. We work with, I think, 50 corporations right now, and we help them give stuff away. Like that is actually the model that allows our revenue to come in. And we've tapped in on the generosity of a whole community of individuals to help people maximize their use of that software, right? And there are other examples of abundance that you can look around in the sector. How many of you have heard of this organization, DC's Central Kitchen? Yeah, I cannot say enough good about these people. So they noticed that these farmers in the Shenandoah Valley, they're in DC, kind of obviously, these farmers in the Shenandoah Valley were plowing food back into the ground because it was like cosmetically less than perfect, right? And they couldn't sell it. So they said, oh, we'll take it. We'll take that food to our kitchens, and we'll use that nice, fresh, organic food that just doesn't look good enough to sell in certain venues, and we'll use it for school lunches, and we'll use it for homeless shelters, and we'll use it for all these other places. So they took the food that was there. They didn't have to get more food from some magical place, right? They tapped into something that was already in the community, right? And they got it out to more people. They used that food desert locator that I showed you to find places in the DC area to put refrigeration units and fill with some of that fresh food. So they were able to bring fresh food into that communities, and they were tapping into the resources that already existed in their community. They didn't have to make anything new to do that. Circle of Six is an app to be It's not quite built yet, I believe. It's by ISIS, which is a San Francisco organization that does sexual education and health for youth. And the Circle of Six app is based on the idea that everybody probably has 6 people that will help them. And you actually want those 6 people in your phone. So you can push a button that has a picture of a car on it, and it sends out a message to that Circle of Six and says, I can't drive right now, I need help. And it sends your GPS coordinates. You know, they have another button that you push, and it says, I need an interruption, can you please call me? Right? Which I would like at work sometime. But, you know, and it has a series of those things, and the whole idea is we actually have 6 people that will help us when we get stuck. You know, I think one of the other ones is more urgent, and it both calls 911, but also sends out your coordinates to those 6 folks. So it's not just the police that know where you are. You know, and finally, Youth Uprising. So they're an organization in Oakland. This youth center, which is like this amazing building, is in a boarded up Safeway. Right? That's what it was. These kids were walking back this empty, they were walking past this empty building day in and day out. And when the city of Oakland decided to invest in building a youth center, they said, well, we know where we want it to be. We want it to be right here in this building that already exists, on this land that already exists. Right? So all of these organizations, they built on this idea that actually the resources are there. We often have to sort of repurpose them, right? And figure out how to reuse them and sort of get them into a stream of people that can actually make good happen with them. So I think that we can actually build a whole sector on that idea.